I'm wondering, Lenny, whether you have anything to say, especially about the blood price that that Ajax is talking about, the Poinē.
Right. So Ajax makes an analogy between the feelings that Achilles has about losing his prize woman, Briseis, and the way a person in the outside world accepts a blood prize when they've lost a child or a relative. Okay, it's really not quite totally clear what. Okay, a brother or a son. That's it. It says a brother or a son.
Yeah.
And that you accept a poinē. Okay, where this word, which is related to the notion of the word for ransom, it's the same root, which is what's being given to him, an apoina. So,
so you mean that apoina has the same root as Poinē? Yeah.
Has the same root, and the analogy is being drawn by Ajax between the moment in which here they are trying to compensate Achilles, and they're his friends, okay, by giving, and he won't accept the apoina, whereas a person who's lost a brother or a son, a blood relative, accepts a poinē, and the point being that there is a built-in mechanism in the society for the acceptance of compensation that Achilles is disregarding, and it makes Achilles stop and change what he's been saying. It has a real distinct effect on him, and it changes his mind about leaving.
Now, I've heard you talk about this at a conference in China, in Beijing, where you made the argument that after every one of the speeches, in other words, after the speech of each of the three ambassadors, Achilles not only reacts, but reacts differently and even changes his mind.
Right. He makes a step towards the ultimate, what we know is the ultimate goal of his trajectory in the Iliad, and on each one he goes a little bit further. Okay, and this is the decisive step in the series of three steps that he makes.
Because this is the third speech, and he's reacting to the third speech.
Right, and there's a pattern of the third being the climactic in a series of three, and he's a person who's responding to the. I think this is a problem a lot of students have. They think of him as a stubborn person, but he's really interacting with these people and responding to what they say and thinking his way through what for him is an enormously difficult problem.
Lenny, would you say that these three kinds of reactions correspond to the three types of people he's talking to? Because they're all different, right? Ajax and
very
Phoenix,
important, right. Odysseus is more like his opposite number, and it's kind of built in that it's not going to work, right? And then Phoenix is a person who is a senior person to him, who has a sort of fatherly role, and then there his philoi. Okay, the people, but Phoenix also mentions the friendship that he has for Achilles, but it's not the same kind of relationship as what Ajax is asserting, right?
Yes, it's such a study of different human relations.
Yes.
When you think about Achilles' relation with these three people, these three ambassadors.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I'd like for you to do is maybe upload that paper of yours so that when we talk about this, people can download it.
Right. What I think is important about this is the third speech that's made, the first speech being Odysseus, which is Odysseus' speech which Achilles rejects entirely and says he's going home, okay? And that's the offer of all the prizes. The second speech being Phoenix's, where in response to Phoenix's story about Meleagros, Achilles says, well, maybe I'll think this over, and in the morning, you stay with me, Phoenix, okay? We're friends, okay? And we'll figure out in the morning what to do. And then this is the last of the three, and set up as a climactic moment when Ajax as his peer really appeals to him on the basis of their friendship and draws this analogy between the way you accept compensation in the real world of everyday life as opposed to Achilles' rejection of the compensation that's being offered him, and it has an effect on Achilles. That's the climax of the story. That is that at this point he says, okay, I'm not going to go home, I'm going to stay here, and I will fight, but not until the very last moment. In other words, he sets himself up to do exactly what Meleagros has done.
Well, that means that he loops back to reacting to the first speech.
Exactly.
So he's reacted to the first speech, he's reacted to the second speech, he's reacted to the third speech, but then after finishing his reaction to the third speech, then we realize that he's taken to heart, if that's the word, or taken to mind,
Right.
what the old man Phoenix was saying to him in the first speech.
Right.
And he even reacts to that.
Exactly. But he's also reacted in a way, there's a consistency between these things, because what he rejects in Odysseus' speech is all the prizes and stuff, right?
Yes.
And what he's doing by taking on Meleagros' identity is saying, I don't need any of those prizes. I'm going to wait until the last moment and give them up, right?
And
so
he's willing
one
to give
really,
it up.
Yep.
So he's thought that through.
Yes. Each one is building on the previous one in a way that logically works together. And then he comes to the final moment in which he makes his decision, which is the crucial one for the whole poem, and which sets you up for, the overarching theme, I think, of the poem is the change from Achilles' special anger, his menis, into what the poem calls philotes, his bonds to his philoi and his friends.
The ties that bind.
The ties that bind, and so that's the big trajectory of the poem.
So what is it to be philos?
Yes,
And
yes,
that's what the old
exactly.
man Phoenix wants the story to be about in the second story.
Yes, exactly.
And I didn't quite say it right, because when I said looping back, it's not looping back to the very first.
Right.
It's looping back to the second.
Yes,
the
exactly.
second story.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, but I think of it as this what a kind of metonymic learning in which each piece gets added on to the previous one. So you build on them, right? It's not that he's abandoned the positions of the earlier ones. He in a sense, there's a consistency to them, right?
Well, it's like your metaphor about
Yes,
the train,
exactly.
where the train
Keeps on.
starts at station A and then goes to B to C, all the way to Z, and any passenger that gets on at any point has to stay on.
And nobody gets off.
Nobody gets on.
Yes.
And so Achilles is processing everything, and in a way shows us how to process too, because as we see his reactions, we start understanding, well, as we go through this narrative, we too have to keep changing our thinking about Achilles, because Achilles is changing his thinking, certainly.
Yep. He's not a fixed point in the turning world.